Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Meet the Makers. I am so excited to have the people behind the scenes of Microsoft Loop here with us today. So let me have you introduce yourself, Ron and Michelle. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
This is so fun. I just like doing this because I'm a little bit of a product geek. So having the people who are actually building the product, I think, is really important. So Ron, why don't you, Michelle, tell us what you do?
Sure. My name's Ron Pessner, and I lead product management for the Modern Collab team in Office.
And I'm Michelle Holtman, and I lead product management for the Loop team.
So thank you for being here. I'm really excited to hop into this conversation. But before we do, can we actually see the product? I think you have a video that will help us understand it.
Yes, I'd love to give you an overview of the product before we start. We have an explainer video that gives you an overview of Microsoft Loop and talks about some of the core scenarios.
Say goodbye to the frustration of jumping between apps and losing track of documents and ideas. Microsoft Loop transforms the way you work, so you can think, plan, and create together like never before. Loop is made up of workspaces, pages, and components. Let's break it down. Create together with shared workspaces for each of your projects. On the Loop homepage, you can access all your existing workspaces and create new ones. In a Loop workspace, you can bring everything you need for your project together in one place. To kick off a workspace, Loop can even do the searching for you, making it easy to add existing project-related information and organize it into pages. Continue adding to your workspace as your project evolves and organize it the way you want. Loop pages are flexible canvases where you can react, comment, and build on each other's ideas. Notifications help you track the things you care about and focus on what matters, all while staying in the flow of your work. Copilot in Loop helps you ideate and co-create. Get inspired with AI-powered contextual suggestions to transform the way you create together. Don't let app barriers slow your project down. Easily share information with people outside your workspace with Loop components. Components are portable pieces of content that stay in sync across all the places they have been shared, no matter where they are updated. You can share components and create new ones, like lists, tables, paragraphs, and more, across your favorite Microsoft 365 apps. You're always in control because it's easy to see where components were shared and who has access. However you work, wherever you work, Loop enables teams to think, plan, and create together like never before.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think you already know this. I'm a huge fan. I'm a little bit of a Loop girl.
I love it.
For sure. I use it every day. I use it in all my different lives, and I'm completely into it. From the very beginning, actually. You know, I mean, you can see in that video, it's really dynamic, it's intuitive, and we love it. What was the genesis of Loop? How do you come up with something like this? I'm not that person, right? I don't necessarily innovate on product, I innovate on process, but how did you come up with Loop?
Sure. So we came up with Loop primarily because when we were working on collaboration in Office, we were noticing that there was a much bigger need for people to work together. And that work together may or may not result in the creation of a formal document. Mm-hmm. And so there was just a lot of like in-between space that really wasn't well served across M365. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to be able to have a place where people could collaborate, meet people where they are in our experiences, and give them the opportunity to collaborate and work together and achieve what they're aiming to get done together. And so this can happen inside of Teams, it can inside Outlook, it can be inside of a workspace. But really thinking about that deconstruction of work and how workflows really kind of transcend application boundaries. And for us, that was a big part of the motivation behind Loop.
Absolutely. And how did you come in? I mean, product management for leading that team. What do you think about this innovation, and what was your take on it?
So I did not join Loop on day zero when they came up with the idea. I actually saw the video, and I was sitting back in another team, a pretty interesting team, and I was like, is that thing real? And I'm like, how? And I'm like, if that exists, how do I get to be part of it and help shape the vision for it? And so my paths had crossed Ron Pessner's in Xbox, and I'm like, let's see what happens, and I joined the Loop team.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And there was a hint there to two things that I think are really important. I heard customer empathy and what you said, and I said taking a hold of your own career is what I heard from what you said. And I think both of those things, especially at a large organization like Microsoft, are very important. Right. Yep. But not many people get an opportunity to actually create a brand new application inside of Microsoft 365. What's that like?
Well, it's quite a lot of work. I mean, first off, we've had tremendous support, from exec staff and leadership in the organization has been incredibly supportive. And, we've really built this thing starting with the foundation layer of Fluid Framework. And making sure that the platform is really solid. We've been working super closely with our friends in OneDrive SharePoint as we're built on SharePoint Embedded. And there's a ton. I mean, the power of Loop really comes from, Michelle loves to say this, but it really comes from the power of integrating with all of our experiences. And so we spend a ton of time working really across the organization to make sure that we're bringing the best of M365 into Loop, and then making sure that people using Loop can get the power of M365.
Yeah, and I think people sometimes still think of Microsoft in that historical version that we don't work together well. But when I see your product, I see something completely different. To me, it's a representation, much like Teams or Copilot, of the way we work together now. Is that your experience, Michelle?
100%. And it is, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to join a team like Loop, because I could see the potential going across M365 and how a product like Loop could amplify our existing products in the suite. And I also selfishly was like, oh gosh, if that vision video can become real, it could change how I work. And I'm like, I'm all in. And it's been amazing. And our sister teams have been so helpful and paving the way for us and partnering with us. It's been very fun.
Yeah, and I feel like, the culture of Microsoft in these innovation areas really is where our culture shines, and what Satya's been driving for all of us to do for a very long time. One, Microsoft. Doesn't happen all the time, we're still human, but there are definite examples, especially in product development like both of you are, where it's real human people who are making these decisions, right? We're not a machine, we're actually a bunch of people trying to do the best by our customers. So tell us a little bit about some of your favorite scenarios and how Loop actually works.
Oh, I love Loop from the aspect that you can start messy, like when you have a thought and you can just freeform it, or you can make it structured. I can work alone. I can invite Ron. I can invite you. I can mention people across the team. Loop also does a really good job, I think, in bringing people together. And so when I joined the Loop team, I didn't really know a lot of people on the team. And when I was invited to collaborate in different workspaces and on different Loop pages, I got to know them. I could see them on the page working. And even though we were geo-distributed, I think that's a gold mine for companies to be able to bring people together. And I know everybody's struggling. Do you support hybrid work or not? With a product like Loop, you can, because it actually accelerates that team culture. And that's what I love, how Ron approached it, how Igor on our team approached it. Just amazing, and just to be part of it, you're just like, oh my gosh. And we are very customer focused, and I love that about it.
Yeah, some of my favorite scenarios are around like meetings and thinking about like the before the meeting and setting an agenda, and you can collaborate on the agenda in advance of the meeting, and then in the meeting being able to collaboratively take notes, and then after the meeting having the tasks easily sync all the way to the task fabric and available across M365. It's a really killer set of scenarios, and for us doing that work, I mean, this is across literally a dozen teams inside Microsoft, all working on bringing that solution together. And one of the things that's really exciting for us with Loop and some of the scenarios that we've been working on are adding Copilot as a collaborator. And so it's particularly fun to add Copilot to meeting notes and see that really start to take off. And this is something we announced a couple months ago, but we've been using it internally, and it is incredible. Like, it's absolutely incredible how good it is at taking notes. And it's fun because you see people working together with the Copilot to make sure that the notes get captured the way they want to, and that they can easily track the follow-up items.
I love all of that. And that visual identifier of who's on the page, for me, is super helpful, right? Like if I send something, and even if I put a link out during a meeting to a workspace that we're working in, but then I can see everybody pop in there. And it does give you this feeling. It's odd how those little icons of your profile picture give you that feeling of actually being together in a place. Because it is about connection. Human connection is not something that can be replaced by technology, but it can be blocked by it, and it can be accentuated by it. And I feel like the Loop experiences accentuate that. And I have to share with you one of my favorite scenarios. So I'm a big planner person, planner and project, and I love embedding planner in my Loop and then sending that out via email to people. I'm a Teams person. I work in chat primarily, but I have lots of people that I work with that don't. And the ability for a Loop component to be in Teams and in Outlook and in all these places where in the Loop experience itself, where I can work more broadly on it, you know, that brings together my two worlds, right? Because that's just true in many places.
Totally. Actually, one of the insights that we had, you asked about insights earlier. One of the fun insights we had was many people work on project teams that have people at different generations, and they're habituated on different tools. And that's one of the powers of Loop, is that you can have someone who's maybe a digital native or someone who's fresh out of college. They might do all their work inside of Loop. But then you might have people that might be more chronologically advanced, that might be working in email, or they want to be able to sync these two things together. But this tool allows these people to work together without having to completely learn some new tool.
That's exactly right. And it is a very intuitive, fresh and clean interface that's not overly complicated, which I also think helps with that, whether it's, and regardless of maybe your generation or your chronological advancement, that's my new phrase for the week, folks, in case y'all were wondering. It's also about experience with tools, right? And what people are comfortable with. People default to what they're comfortable with. And, adoption, user enablement, change management, it's always true. So just having them not feel overwhelmed by the interface when they get there allows the technology to begin to melt away, and then they're left with their thoughts or what they're actually trying to do, which usually isn't about us, it's about them.
Absolutely.
Right, for sure. Now, we know what our favorite scenarios are, which is important, but what have you heard from customers in the ways that they're using Loop?
Yeah, in fact, we were meeting with a customer just earlier today. One of the things I'm super proud of with our team is that they're incredibly customer driven. So we're meeting with customers constantly, and we consistently hear a number of killer scenarios with Loop. One of them is around just helping people, kind of like your scenario with Planner, creating a center of gravity for your projects. And so when you're kicking off a new piece of work, being able to just pull in all the people, pull in all the content, be able to go back there and get updated on what's been happening on your project. And if you're using Copilot, having Copilot do some of that organization and updating for you, it's a really amazing scenario. And then we also hear a lot of very positive feedback on our meetings lifecycle, the before, during, and after meetings is another killer scenario. And then people are also keeping a number of their team information inside of Loop. Right? So it's a great way to just, if you have someone new joining, like when Michelle joined, she can just easily go in and see what the team's been working on.
I think it helps people not needing to onboard people in an old-fashioned way. It's really real time, and you can feel like you're part of the team, you're learning with the team. It helps you retain that intellectual property that companies struggle with, because you have meetings about the same topic over and over. In Loop, you can point people right to it, you can find it. And then with Copilot, it makes you even more effective, as a person. One of the secret things that we're doing with Copilot is we'll have it be able to help you make Loop pages and different types of things on the page.
That's going to be fantastic. That's going to be fantastic. Now, I would be remiss, I come from originally the SharePoint community. And so, and of course, I spent a good portion of my career in Microsoft Teams. So talk to me a little bit about how you think about this center of gravity and how it relates to Teams and SharePoint. Because of course, I've taught center of gravity with Teams for a long time. Now I'm hearing something different, but that's good. But how should I think about it?
Yeah, we get a lot of very positive feedback around how Loop kind of feels like the other half of Teams. So, people
100%.
like Teams is phenomenal for communication, collaboration, and then Loop gives you space to do the work, right, that needs to be done day in and day out. And then obviously SharePoint is a great place to store and record and broadcast information and provide status updates. And we have built Loop quite intentionally on top of SharePoint, and have worked to integrate it with Teams. And you might have seen just recently, we've made it possible to set the Loop app as a default and pin it to your left rail inside of Teams. This is a highly requested feature.
Yeah, absolutely.
But because people are working in both, right? They want to be able to bring these two pieces together and be able to communicate. And we've also integrated Loop components in both Teams, but not only in meetings, but in chat and also in channels. And this is a great way to stay up to date. So you can put your Loop components, you can take a status report, put it right there in the team channel. If you want to invite your team to come participate in a Loop workspace, you can just take a link to that workspace and put it into Teams. And that way people can self-select and join the different projects.
There's a workflow there where even on my team, we capture all of our news and updates and things that are going on in Loop because it's fast and simple and we can edit it and I can share it easily. But then the actual news articles are pages in SharePoint.
Absolutely.
That's the formal way that we distribute broadly.
That's right.
And so I hope people start to think about the scenarios that they're using each of these surfaces for, because it's an end-to-end workflow, right? I'm having quick conversations, making decisions in chat. I may be documenting that and doing a little write-up that we can all agree on in Loop. And then when I publish that officially, it's coming out through SharePoint, all of which has governance delivered from that SharePoint ecosystem underneath. And so people can remain really confident about their data being in their boundaries and being governed well, which is of course so important for Copilot. Leading product management, sometimes I find it's difficult to have individual product managers think beyond the vertical that they're working in, the one surface that they're working on, because they need to be deep experts, right? But what happens for you when you're thinking beyond that scope? You're thinking about these broader scenarios. Do you have conversations with your product managers? Like, how do you think about that from a PM perspective?
So we do. So I mean, we know what our customers do. We know how we work at Microsoft, and we take that and we'll look across where the most requested features are, and we'll build it. But like Loop allows you to start your process through Teams. You can be messy when you have a thought that's more fully formed and you want to take it out to build a PowerPoint deck, Word documents. We will integrate across the full suite, the full ecosystem.
That's so exciting. It's really exciting. I mean, there's just so much there. You've had all these early successes, right? You've got a really robust roadmap. And of course, also now you're participating in the era of Copilots and AI, which is extremely exciting for all of us at Microsoft, and we hope all of you. But what is one thing you would have done differently in this journey of creating this product?
We periodically do these retrospectives to try to reflect on, okay, well, what could we have done differently? I think we did an absolutely fantastic job getting to the public preview. But one thing that we learned in that process is that we were so focused on performance, reliability, stability of the product. We wanted to make sure that people had a great experience. And I was really proud of the work the team did to create an end-to-end experience, really thinking about the onboarding and making sure that it would all hang together and make sense. But that being said, we rushed so hard to get to the public preview that for about 2 months afterwards, we didn't have any additional capabilities. And we had them in development. But if I were to do it again, I would have taken some things maybe out of the preview and released them 2-4 weeks later.
That makes sense.
Because then it would help people see, because we were working on it, and it was tough for us to get the feedback because people were like, okay, well, this is great. And what are you working on? And we're like, we're working on it, I promise. It would have been better if we could have just said, see, yes, here's this next highly requested thing. And we have gotten into this motion as a team where, every week we're trying to get something new out that people are asking for.
Because we were trying to make the complete product on day zero and we didn't need to.
Right. And something, but that's also, I believe, a part of, I think, moving to this idea of continuous development, continuous improvement, which I know the industry knows about. But I think it takes humans a minute to really wrap your mind around that. What does that actually mean? And at Microsoft, that's been a journey because, we came from obviously our history
That's
and
right.
having shrink-wrapped
Yes.
DVDs
Exactly
and CDs
right.
going out to people.
Yes.
And now we have this, Teams was one of the first places where we did that so deeply every week with the pace.
Yes.
People constantly talk
Yes.
about the pace of change.
Yes.
And now products like yours and Copilot and others, this is just the way we operate.
Has to be. And maybe another one might be like we worked so hard to bring web and mobile out at the same time. And that was a lot of complexity. There was a ton of, I don't know of any other product that we've been near in recently where this has happened.
Yeah.
Usually it's web first and then mobile follows. And people stage that work because it is complicated. And I think getting all of that together for the preview, I'm really proud of the work. Like I'm excited that we delivered a complete package, but we did have maybe a little extra complexity and we also had a little bit of a lull in our response post-launch or post-availability that was not optimal.
Well, but I will just inject just a teensy bit of reality in there in that, of course, your super users who are in preview will tell you that. But for the rest of the humans in the world, 2 months is not a lull. 2 months is okay because that's how it takes us some time to actually learn. Right?
Yes.
The brain doesn't operate on the same pace. Human neuroscience is a little different than our own coding capabilities, and so don't worry about those 2 months. We needed an exhale for a minute.
Can you
probably.
be my boss, please?
Yeah, right. I just think that we need to be mindful of the pace of change we're putting our humans through.
Yeah.
Yes.
But of course, human change is my thing. So of course I would say that as we go along. There's so many things to think about. And I'm so glad we're kicking off this entire series with this interview because I really feel it's important, and especially here in the community, for people to know the humans making the products, right? We are people who are doing this work. And humanizing product development is one of my particular passions. And I do that also for the IT pros out there in the world, right? Having worked in Microsoft IT, that can be a very stressful job. And so, what do IT professionals need to know? How much do you think about IT professionals in the Loop team?
We think about them a lot, and so they are our number one priority. Our initial audience changed, on Loop. So initially we thought we were going to go more of a consumer base. And it's not that we don't want to go after just pure MSA consumers. We saw the broad appeal and we were getting pinged constantly, like, hey, we want this, we want this, we want this. And then we're like, but a lot of responsibility comes, when you do that, just like what you were saying earlier. And so they are a top priority for us. And so we do meet with them regularly and get their feedback. MSIT is a great partner for us and guides us. And security, privacy, performance, all of those things are just really fundamental. And I think the team did such a great job building that foundation. I was shocked when I joined, like just how solid Fluid Framework was. And we do know we need more IT controls.
Right, and we've been working really hard with the SharePoint Embedded team to make sure that we're going out with because SharePoint Embedded is new too.
Yeah.
And so making sure that we've got all the right IT controls for manageability, which is so critical for a product like Loop. We want to make sure that we're really making it clear what our story is because we are something new.
Yeah.
And we're very aware that the IT pros are critical for us, but they're also getting a lot of information coming in. And so we're trying to make it as simple and as clean and clear as possible. But it is an area where that feedback, we've gotten quite a bit of feedback from IT pros that we've then folded in, and we're trying to do a more systematic rollout in more bite-sized pieces of information and really, put the team, candidly, Michelle had the idea to put the team on call.
So the team does meet with customers on a regular basis, and we do take that feedback. It's just paramount to understand what people need and where we've missed, and getting them in early, through our TAP program, and sort of sharing our work before it's done. And that's scary because, when you're representing something, especially with the Microsoft logo on it, you want it to be perfect, but you also want that early feedback. And the team has really stepped up to it, and we really enjoy the feedback. We want the feedback. We need the feedback.
And I can definitely tell you that showing up in those early audiences, whether they're, NDA audiences, like our MVPs and our partners, or customers in early programs. Time after time here at Microsoft, I've seen that make better products.
Yes.
And so I commend you for that work. It's
Totally.
hard.
It's hard.
We do have this expectation of how we go to market at Microsoft, but being more open, actually it's an exercise in vulnerability, frankly,
Yes.
to really say, hey, I baked this cake. I think it tastes good. Have a piece and tell me what you think.
Yes.
Right? That requires a certain amount of human engagement there. And so, we commend that, because that's also what community is about, is connection. You are connecting with people about what is a shared value. And so we need more of that in the world.
We totally do. One of the things we're really aiming to do is take in all these different sources of feedback and really sense make over them to look at the trends. So direct feedback from customers, feedback through social channels, feedback through Office customer voice, that people provide feedback in the product.
We love it when people send us feedback. Send a smile, send a frown, send a feature that you've dreamt of. Ask us. You have a question, ask us. We can talk to you on social. We'd love to hear from you. Doesn't hurt our feelings. Real people are looking at the data. Please, please, please use Loop. Help us make it better. We're making this for you.
And then, of course, we're doing planning and research ourselves, right? And then being able to bring all that together and distill it down to okay, what are the themes that we're seeing? What are the things we need to respond to? And it has been so incredibly valuable to get that feedback. And it's really fun to watch the team respond to this. They're like, and you're like, why are you working on this? Well, I'm working on this because customers really need this.
Right.
Like, our users need this. And that energy and that passion is really, really exciting. And it's fun. I think it's also fun to see the response from our users when we do address some of their heavy hitters.
We call that closing the loop.
And we close the loop.
People can say things to you, but if you don't come back and close the loop, it's like they don't feel like you're really listening. That active listening at a product level is what you all are exhibiting.
That's right.
And I'm really proud of how you've done this from the ground up, because you've taken all these lessons learned from other more mature products and applied it into your fledgling startup inside of M365, which, having been there at Teams, I can tell you is very difficult, but you're really doing that in such an elegant way. And that's why I'm so excited to hear what's coming next. What is coming next with everything that you're doing? What are you excited about that we can talk about? Because I know there's always things we can't talk about. You know how that goes out there. But what can you talk about that you're excited about?
Well,
I think the Copilot driven pages. I think that's going to help people a lot getting started. You won't have the blank page. It's going to help you be more efficient, faster. It'll be fun.
That's going to be very fun.
And Copilot meeting notes that I mentioned before, that's another really exciting one. And actually, I think you could put the entire umbrella of Copilot over. We're doing a ton of work. I'm really excited because Loop is really a perfect place to put Copilot content and to collaborate. Because a lot of our vision is collaboration and working together, not only with people, but also with Copilot.
Right.
And so thinking about how all that comes together, I think that's a really, really exciting opportunity. And it sort of starts with you personally and working with Copilot, then working with other people and kind of on that progression. And, being able to do that across the suite and be able to take this value and make sure that it's in Teams and it's in Outlook and it's in our authoring applications. I think that's really powerful.
It's very powerful. And what's also powerful is your commitment to community. And so I want to thank you and your teams for really being willing to engage with the community, to take their feedback, to show up where they are. We really appreciate it. We know that they do too. But it does take valuable time, right? Time and effort, and it is a process to listen, right? To really be good at listening to community. But we know the value of that, certainly on my community team, but more broadly from a business perspective, and how it's more innovation. It's food for your innovative muscle to hear from people in this way. So, and I just like sitting back and watching and getting new stuff on my Loop experience and all of my devices and in all of my scenarios, because it is ultimately all about me. I want new features in my Loop, and that works really well.
There are a number of people like you.
I think there are.
And send us feedback through the smile.
I do.
Seriously do. Sign your name. I send feedback to my own team.
Absolutely.
And I sign it like, hello, love
then
Michelle.
it goes in machine learning too, right?
It does.
And then AI plays
But a
over
human
it.
really looks at it all the time.
Yes.
We have people that look at it every day to reason over it so that we understand what people are asking us
That's
for.
fantastic. Well, I'm obviously a Microsoft 365 fan, but what I'm really a fan of is people being able to get work done.
Yes,
That's
me
where
too.
I started out. It wasn't
Yeah.
really about the technology,
Yeah.
it was really about enabling humans.
Yeah.
And this getting to aha is what we talk about in Copilot so much, like, oh, I understand what this can do for me.
Oh, yeah.
That to me is a magic moment. It was as a teacher, it is as a solution architect, and all the different jobs that we've all got to have. Many of us have these kind of different backgrounds coming to where we are right now, but it really is about the people.
Well, and that's the spark to change, right?
Right.
Like that's
Yes.
that aha moment is the spark that then encourages someone to say, hey, maybe I could work differently. Maybe I could be more effective. Maybe I could be more efficient.
Yes.
Maybe I could be more creative.
Wow.
Yeah.
The spark for this is the two of you. You two are the sparks. I see where the Loop team gets all its energy from. You're both fantastic. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. It's
We
been awesome.
appreciate you
You're
too.
welcome.
Thank you for loving Loop.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So if people want to get started today, what do they do?
It's super easy. To get started, all you do is launch your browser and type loop.cloud.microsoft, and that will take you into the Getting Started experience.
And don't forget, you can try it on mobile too. Go to the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and download the Loop app.
That is a wonderful place to get started as well. I'm a fan of web experience, but I really like it on mobile because then my loops are wherever I am, and so is
Exactly.
everything that's embedded in them, by the way.
It's true.
Well, that's our Meet the Makers interview, everyone. Wasn't that fantastic? We love the Loop team and we love the product. If you haven't tried it, now is the time to go and check it out. I love their templates, and part of this series will teach you all about the different scenarios in which you too can use Loop, along with all the rest of your Microsoft 365 and AI experiences. Our entire series is designed to help you get started with this amazing new product and part of Microsoft 365. So follow along with our learning series, and then if you still have questions, join us for our Ask Microsoft Anything, specifically about Microsoft Loop. We're really excited to have you. My name is Caroline Agatimu with Microsoft. Thank you for joining another Meet the Makers episode. See you soon.